It's the 21st century. I don't know if that's a song. Hi everybody.
What?
Oh, flipping no. Welcome back to Drew Review with me, a sentient foot.
Ooh.
It's just weird what you're doing.
And me, a non-sentient foot.
Yeah, a dead foot. Hi.
Hi.
Last when we spoke, we had just watched the animated. It's a thing that happened. Scream of the Shalka. That's being harsh. I like it, but I just think it could be better. You hated it.
Scram of the Shalka.
And the reason Scream of the Shalka was the one and only animated addition to the then official, now unofficial canon of Doctor Who's continuation post the TV movie. The reason it's just the one and only is because the show bloody came back in 2005.
Oi oi.
Oi oi, so we're here to talk about it. As you probably noticed from the thumbnail, in increments, cause like it's easy enough with a series of 5, 6, 7 stories in the classic run to go right. We're going to spend 10-15 minutes talking about each one. Let's do this on the other. But this is 13 stories, and
the video would be so long.
it'd be so long. So we're going to do this in roughly 3 to 4 episode blocks going forwards. Starting with Rose, The End of the World, and The Unquiet Dead.
Mm-hmm.
The first episodes of a new era, new Doctor, new companion, new people working on the show, new music, new visuals.
Knew everything.
New Who, if you will.
Who knew?
I'm Chris.
I'm not Chris.
And you're watching this. First off,
We like to rhyme.
when this series went out, what were you doing? Were you aware of it? Were you watching it when it first began? What's the crack?
My mum and dad watched it, and I watched it.
You've got good taste.
I've mentioned this. I know they have. I mentioned.
I'll be honest. The reason we got married is just so I could be like, yeah, they're my parents. So.
Wow. I mean, I don't blame you because they are fabulous. But wow, yeah.
Some people will be going, oh, stop sucking up. No, seriously, my in-laws are like amazing. Anyway, Karen.
Yes. So I'd walk in and I'd be like, oh my god, they've brought Doctor Who back. This is so stupid. It was better when it was older.
Even though all you knew of it was repeats.
Yeah. And then I sat down and I was
you didn't grow up with it, you didn't have an affinity for it, you just watched repeats and went, this is kind of fun.
And then I sat down and I was like, oh, it's actually pretty good this.
Well, for context, we were 14, so you were at the prime age to be sort of like you know how everybody gets to their mid-teens and suddenly they want to put themselves into boxes because it's a sense of belonging. You know, like, oh, I'm a rocker, or I'm a goth, I'm XYZ.
I don't think anybody would say, yeah, I'm a rocker.
No one would say it, but you all start doing it, though, don't you? Like, I became a little mosher, like, at least externally. I was buying, like, jeans with chains on and this, that, and the other. You all kind of do it. So you're all very defensive of what you like, and you want to kind of categorise yourself by showing off what you dislike. You make a big point of saying, oh, I hate that. That's awful. So it sounds like 14-year-old you was like, well, I don't like it, because it's not the version I know. Screw Doctor Who! Burn down the establishment!
I was always that person that I still kind of am, where if something's really popular, I automatically hate it because I've seen it so much.
But that's why this is unusual, because it wasn't automatically popular. It was a country going, how's this going to go? Is this going to be like that thing everybody who watched it liked? Is it going to be better than the last time it was around? Is it going to be terrible?
I'm just going to point out that when I was 13, 14, 15, I was an arsehole. I was a terrible person, and I'm not even exaggerating.
That was half your life ago.
Wow.
I've grown since then. You are half a life away from being a terrible person. You're now a tolerable person.
We are in the second lockdown.
Yeah, as we're recording this, it's November. And one of the few things that's giving us joy.
And this is the first day, technically, of my lockdown, because I was working last week. And this has already started. Oh no! What will happen?
One of the things that's giving us joy is Doctor Who.
Insulting your wife.
I could go into my full story as to where I was and everything, but I'm not going to. Because I've done it a million times, specifically on the podcast 9 is 10.
Yeah.
Which is also available on this channel.
It was excellent.
Thank you very much. Go to my playlist.
What?
It's 20 odd. Oh God, how many? It's 27 plus episodes because a few adverts and a radio interview. but it's a commentary for each episode in this series with me and a guest. Some people whose names you'll recognise, some you won't, and I'm just excited for you to hear it. And others where you'll go, oh, bloody hell, they works on that thing. And there's also bonus episodes where like friends and I get drunk and do commentaries for Dimensions in Time and things like that. It's worth checking out. Plus a bonus one about Christmas Invasion, because technically it was in the same year, so...
Yeah.
And it feels like a finale to Series 1, even after Series 1's finale. But long story short, I because of growing up with Doctor Who and loving it, finding it through repeats and all these things and wanting to know more about it. When the show was coming out, I was hoping... You're worried about the dryer, aren't you?
Yeah, did you
I'll go check
it
it out in a minute. I was hoping so much that it would work and people would like it. And then I'd be like, yeah, that's that thing I've always liked. Not to be like, yeah, check me out, but just to go, oh, good.
I liked it before it was cool.
I can talk to people about it. That's cool. That's awesome.
That's cool.
I was so happy with the way it went. There's going to be a slight bias on this series, but the whole point of this journey is sort of going back and reassessing things we've already seen and learning new stuff. Chris Eccleston is my favourite Doctor. This series is my favourite series of the show. It's my favourite run. It's my favourite era. It's my favourite tone. It walks so the Tennant era and the show's boom popularity could run, and it's all starting with this year. This is the year that kicks it off. There's a reason there's a meme online, a sort of a hashtag thing on Tumblr and whatnot of "Don't skip 9," because so many people who are just getting into it, like I've seen a bit of David Tennant and they go, "So what is it?" and they start watching from him, and the internet likes to remind people, "Don't skip 9." Definitely don't skip 9.
Don't skip 9. Why would you do that?
This is so strong. Now, the DVD box set is in Vision. We have both versions of it. This is your copy. This is the slim, nice, sexy version of the box set. I've got the giant freaking box one up on a shelf that is falling apart.
It is.
And it's so impossible to get the discs out of. But we've been watching this on the Steelbook Blu-ray, so it's not in Vision. But just wanted to point that out in case anyone hears us talk about a visual thing and goes, actually, it doesn't look like that. They fixed that or whatever. So there you go. But it's also an excuse for us to finally crack open these Steelbooks because I bought all the Russell era ones. So here we go. Rose, what happens in Rose, my boo?
Rose, we are introduced to Billie Piper, who plays Rose Tyler. Is that right?
Yeah? No, but go on.
Yeah, well, anyway. And she is
We're 40 minutes in. Just get to the point.
She's... I forgot what I was going to say now.
Who's Rose Tyler?
Rose Tyler, she's just your average girl working in a shop in London. Very relatable, very cute, very...
Bored.
Yeah, exactly.
Super bored.
And something happens, and she bumps into the Doctor. Well, the Doctor ends up saving him.
Can we talk about that moment before you go any further?
Yeah.
So she goes into the montage does its job of setting up, action-packed music to the most boring visual. Essentially, just like she's here, she's hanging out with her boyfriend, she's at the shop, like
Yeah, the music did make me cringe, I'm not going to lie.
Well, I kind of dig it, because the idea is like, yeah, isn't this exciting? But it's like, no, none of it is. And it's sort of, it's to juxtapose the idea of like, hey, isn't this enough? And you can see that she's like, no, not really. Do you know what I mean? Like, the visuals, but, fair enough. Again, Murray Gold, shout out to him. There was an orchestra and recording sessions with full, choirs and everything for this series, but a lot of this is just Murray Gold, like, working by himself to make the music. And he creates some of the best tunes that the show has ever had this series.
Oh, yeah,
Some of the best themes start in this series.
Absolutely.
The titles. I love the titles. I think the 10 years do it better when they change the logo to the bright, burning orange one, and Series 4 in particular, when the guitars come in to the theme music. Good God, so good. But I love the titles. I love the TARDIS travelling down one vortex, stopping, repositioning, then going down the other one, and the names flying, because we've lost the face. The face is gone still.
I'm kind of sad about that.
Well, it does come back eventually, but just not for another era.
Does it?
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it. So you get the the names zooming into the camera, and it kind of feels like event telly in a way. It's almost like, here are your stars. Here we go. Like, it's really hammering home that you're about to have an adventure. It feels like adventure. Yeah, this definitely. Theme music feels like, here we freaking go, everybody.
Yeah. Definitely.
Which is so cool. So yeah, the shop mannequins start to move in the basement and go to attack Rose. And then someone... just the way it's done. Just the shot of a hand grabbing her hand. Then they reveal this bloke. And he just goes, run. And they leg it. And you're like, oh my god, we're off. We're off. We're 3 minutes in, and we've hit the crux of what this show can be. Like, we're here. Doctor, companion, scary monsters, legging it, saving the day. It's like, okay, we're here. The core components of the original series have been boiled down, and here they are in one moment.
Yeah.
And it shows you that Russell T Davies and Julie Gardner and later Phil Collinson and Jane Tranter and all these people that started to put the show together got what it was about and what it could be to a modern audience. Mm-hmm. There's a simplification here, but it's not a downgrade.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a reconstitution. It's the show dematerialized and then it rematerialized disguised as a new thing, but it's still the same show. Yeah, I mean, if you're watching this, you've likely seen Rose blowing up things, auto invasion, but it's the little moments that made this revisit fun for me. I want to ask you about it though, because this is the first time you've watched this in a few years. Mm-hmm. I know we when we first got the Steelbook, we watched the first couple, but this was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
What did you notice on this? What you'd never noticed before? Like stuff you liked, stuff you didn't like, etc.
I really like having seen a lot of companions join the Doctor now. Seeing Rose wanting to find out more about him.
Yeah.
I found really interesting, and I just thought it was really funny that she went to see Clive.
Yeah, and Mark Benton, lovely Mark Benton, one of the first of many sort of collaborators of Russell T Davies who pop up across this era, who's been in his previous stuff. He's so good in The Second Coming.
I just thought he was. That's just amazing.
He's basically the mouth of Satan in that. God, he's so good in that.
That's just a really
so creepy.
Series that anyway. I just think it's really funny that she's like, yeah, he's a nut job. Oh my god. Well,
it's because everything she's shown is like, yeah, no, this can't be real. Of course, he hasn't been alive for hundreds of years. Like, what a load of nonsense.
Yeah.
And this begins the series, and they do this so wisely for the longest time. They only very, very vaguely acknowledge a previous continuity, and I think that's the right decision at this point.
Yeah.
So, like, the only acknowledgement of it in this is Clive says, "That's your one."
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no further reference. Now, the Target novelisation that Russell did alongside some of the other stories that have been Target novelised since goes well into it a lot more, because if you're reading the Target novelisation, you've seen the episode. Here's a more expanded version of it with different things and different takes on stuff.
Yeah. And
much more gruesome auton attacks as well. In that, Clive really goes into it, and we even get a glimpse at future Doctors, including one that she wasn't confirmed at the time of writing per se, but based on hints and stuff, Jodie's described. And then
you've read me that.
Oh no, that's in the poetry book actually. That was done before she was cast. In this one, the filming had begun when he was writing it, so it was like, right, hints, vague hints. But then there are other hints of other Doctors, and it's like, wow, Clive has got such a bloody big database. And you want to know more about him. But we won't, because he gets killed off. Someone in the comments is like, but he's been in Big Finish. I don't care.
We're not even going there.
We're not going there. We're talking about the televised stories, and sometimes things are better in small doses. Oh, Christ. Jackie's wonderful.
Jackie's hilarious.
I love Camille Kajuri. When we did this for Time Team in the magazine, Jackie was like our unofficial mascot of the entire show. Camille Kajuri is brilliant in this role. She's so much fun. And
everybody,
painfully
the thing is,
mummish.
In the UK, everybody knows somebody like this.
Yes.
Which is really funny. But this is extremely relatable. I'm sure the other companions were at their, at the time that they came out. Except Turlo.
Ian and Barbara, maybe.
What's his name?
Adric. Ian and Barbara, maybe. Tegan, maybe. Sarah Jane and Joe, certainly.
Yeah.
I get a lot of them sort of join in extraordinary circumstances. Like even Perry's joining like with her stepdad on an expedition out somewhere exotic. It's like, wait, what? You know, obviously all the actors can make their characters very likeable and people we want to spend time with, but not many start from somewhere we recognise. And Rose is the main character.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
something else that's really important in the series. Rose is the main character of the show.
Definitely.
It's an ensemble thing. It's a co-starring thing with the Doctor, but Rose is the main character, and that helps so much. Because part of the fun.
Did you just have a flop down?
Yeah, I hope people can see this camera. Minnie's just flopped down for a belly tickle. Part of the fun of this reinvention is that, hey, this is you. She is you.
Exactly.
And do you ever have those days where you just wish you could escape everything in the mundanity of like the daily grind? You wish you could bugger off and do something exciting and amazing and impossible that no one's ever done before? Well, you are. You're Rose. Come with us. And that angle is so brilliant, which is why the decisions made after this episode on where to go work so well in the show's favour. I love Rose. I think it's such a great introduction to the show. There's just enough silly scares for kids and a few genuinely unnerving scares in there as well.
Yeah.
Like the silly ones are like being strangled by a mannequin arm, swallowed by a dustbin. You can tell me, babe, sugar, honey, babe. All that stuff is like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But then you sort of step back from it and you go, actually, that is kind of freaky. When its hands turn to paddles and this headless mannequin is just smashing things.
The paddles thing, though, it just makes me think of, like, somebody making a pizza.
Well, yeah, it wasn't an Italian restaurant and it did want pizza. Part of me thinks that was more down to the fact that if they had a blade, it would have been... Minnie, come here! Hey!
Come here, Bubba!
Come on.
Come
Part of me thinks that...
Come here! Sorry, we're training the dog not to
attack the cat.
Asshole to the cat. Good girl!
Part of me thinks the reason they went with the paddles is if they'd gone with a blade, it would have been someone in Exec Wise would have been like, that's too scary.
Yeah, definitely.
So I understand. In the book, it's blades. It's big bloody blades in the book. The guy screaming is a nice touch and is in the script. It's so weird because only when that happens you sort of realise we don't really see that. We don't really see in these situations the first person to scream in a really like panicky way being the bloke. That never happens. And that is in the script for the episode. And it's like, yes, great choice. So, for Pete's sake, Minnie, we're trying to record a video.
Minnie!
Which we don't edit because it's essentially a podcast diary thing.
Come here, good girl.
Oh God, sorry, Newcomers.
Sorry, this is very annoying, but the dog barking at the cat is more annoying. Come here, good girl. Oh, so clever, good girl.
The Tardis reveal, the first time we see... I love the way it's teased. Like, throughout the start of the episode, it's not glorified, but it's in shots in such a teasing way that anyone who knows what it is getting excited, because they're like, oh, that's the TARDIS.
Yeah.
And then when we finally go in it, I love the reveal. We see Rose's reaction. We don't see what she's looking at. She goes back out, runs around it, just to make sure she's not, like, tripping balls. And then she runs back in and the shot just follows her in and it's just like, boom. Look at this cathedral of a room. Billie Piper's excellent in this and she's excellent in the show going forward. I know Rose rubs people the wrong way and we'll talk about that as we go. Yeah, but I don't think it's because of this series. It's next series for the most part. We'll talk about that as we go because I don't feel... she's incorrect. A lot of people talk about like how she's very selfish. Like when she runs and it starts with this episode with her running away and leaving Mickey behind and everything. It's like, yeah, but
Minnie.
she's also 19 and impulsive. She's an adult, but she's not. She's an adult, but she's not a grown-up yet. Of course she's selfish. Of course she's impulsive. But it's also an adventure show. If Rose doesn't go with the Doctor, you don't get these stories.
Exactly.
So... deal with it. But Billie Piper in this is wonderful. Like, she plays it all brilliantly. And considering this was like her first kind of big role where she had a whole thing on her shoulders.
Yeah.
She does such a great job.
I think she does.
Again, supporting cast, Camille Kajuri's great. Noel Clarke is great. He's a bit misused this series. I think in series 2 they realise what his sort of range is more like. And they play to him a little more in series 2.
Yeah.
But in this series, he absolutely sells the goofy ass Mickey perfectly. Like he's not a bad guy. He's just a bit lazy and a bit stupid, and that's not like he's not a bad person.
No.
But you can understand why Rose is a bit fed up. Like he's a good-looking bloke. They have a laugh, but she's like, okay, what else?
I want adventure in the
Exactly.
great
She's the
somewhere.
90s Disney princess version of a companion.
Can you get out there, please? Thank you.
Let's talk about the TARDIS. What do you think of it? Do you like the look of it?
I love it.
I love this TARDIS so much.
It's very.
I love it so much.
Do you know what I love about it? It's different from the old one.
Yeah,
because that was getting very.
They're not frightened of going. Yeah, screw that. Let's just something completely different. But it still has echoes of it. Like the lights in the walls are kind of like the round rules.
Yeah. You've still got all the round bits because you kind of there's kind of technical stuff behind there and it's kind of storage, isn't it? So.
And after the cathedral-y hallway library one of the Eighth Doctor, which was bloody wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's nice that they're carrying on the idea of no, it can look very different every time if we want it to.
Yeah.
And now it does. I also love one change they make for this, which they then carry on throughout the modern era, which I adore, is the doors.
Yeah.
I love that the doors just directly open into it, and on the inside look like the back of the police box doors. Like it's this weird reminder of what it looks like on the outside.
Yeah.
Which by this point has become as iconic, if not more so, than what the interior looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So having that little visual nod to what the outside looks like in the set is like, I love that. I think it's such a great touch. I love that he still has the hat stand. The coat stand is by the door.
Yes.
I love that, just next to the ramp.
Oh, yeah. Oh my god, I've never even thought about that.
So many little nods. I love that the console looks like it's been kit bashed.
Yeah.
Like some stuff has happened since we last saw him, and he's repaired this thing like a million times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's brilliant, which then eventually gets reimagined in the early Smith era as like a Willy Wonka-esque, just look at all these weird levers and pulleys and knobs and buttons, like what do they all do? And it's still kind of like different materials, but it looks more like something out of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Yeah.
Whereas at this point, it looks like someone's gone, God, you've had some cowboys in here. Right, tell you what, for 50 quid, I'll do this, and I'll do. And I love that.
You've had some.
I mean, he's got a hammer. You see him at one point, like take the hammer and just bang the console with it. Like just taking a hammer up just to bang the console so it works. Like what a brilliant, weird little visual choice. I love it.
It's like he's not had time to just like.
Yeah.
Stand
because we get that. That's the only sort of hint of what's going on we get in this. The Nestine! A returning villain!
Yes.
My favourite monsters! No wonder I'm biased! What do you think about the Autons in this? Do you think... Because it's a very... Compared to the last two times we saw them, this is a very simplified plot for them. This is like the basics of an Auton invasion.
Yeah.
Nestine's here. It's going to turn all plastic into its kind of conduits. That's the plot. There's not Auton soldiers being made. No politicians are being replaced. There's no asphyxiating daffodils being delivered across the country or toys that are going to kill people. Like it's just it's going to send out a signal. And
there's no chairs.
There's no smothery, cuddly chairs. It's just going to send out a signal, and all plastic will eventually turn into an extension of the Nestine.
Yeah. And
that's how it's going to survive. Why Earth? Because again, toxins, pollutants. It's just like I'm going to live here. But we learned that it's because we don't know if it's the same creature as before. Like it's entirely possible that it's one consciousness and always has been, and it's just different extensions of itself. Mm-hmm. So the times we've met it before, when it's formed as like a squiddy thing and all that, like they're all the same creature, but it's not like the same physical creature. Like it's all a mental thing. It's a consciousness, a Nestine consciousness. So this time it's a big sort of lava boiling broth of a thing underneath London, and its food stocks were destroyed in the war. This is the first mention we get. Its food stocks are destroyed in the war. That's why it's come here. And the Doctor has basically tracked it down, has been stopping its attempts at violence, like at the store and everything.
Yeah.
And then he finds it to negotiate with it. Because he's like, look, just leave this planet. pick somewhere else. We'll find somewhere else. Just leave here. But it's on the cusp of the invasion. The signal's going to be sent out. All plastic's going to be warped. And he's brought... What's interesting is he's brought anti-plastic, which is such a great... Just so simple.
It's like a Batman...
What is it? Anti-plastic.
Shark repellent.
The name tells us everything we need to know. Sure. Is it dumb? Yes. Does it get to the point so we can focus on the characters in this pilot episode? Yes. Also, the way he says it. Anti-plastic. Yeah, it's brilliant. Go and have your lovely beans on toast. It's the fact that he brought it as insurance. So he was potentially going to threaten the Nestine with it. And it's like, okay, this is interesting. It's the Doctor being diplomatic, but also willing to kill it if need be. But then we realise that he doesn't. The only reason the day is saved is because everything's going to go to hell. London starts coming... Plastic mannequins start coming alive in London, killing people. And Rose, using her basic gymnastic skills from school, swings in and just basically a kick saves the day.
Save the day!
Yeah. Saving Mickey and everything. It's a really simple story, and it needs to be because it's establishing what the show is.
Yeah.
It uses an old villain that doesn't take too much to picture or concentrate on for newbies, but for old timers, it's like, oh my god, I remember I had nightmares about them dummies. Oh my god, they're back. So it's kind of hitting both audiences nice and easy.
Yeah.
It's also a smart decision to make the villain in episode 1 something that you see from day to day, because I think if you'd opened with rubber monsters, you would have had the people who were... Because again, rewind to 2004 when like the press are talking about, oh, here's photos of them shooting on the streets of Cardiff, and this and that. People were like, oh god, wobbly sets and rubber monsters. Like, that stereotype had bedded in completely by this point. And having now watched the classic era, that stereotype's a load of bullshit.
It is.
There are moments where things have aged badly, and there are moments where they could have made a better decision on the day. But it was not a show of just rubber monsters and wobbly sets.
No.
This was having to combat that perception of it, though. So making the monsters just mannequins works fine. Episode 1, people are brought in.
It's horrifying.
I really like Rose as a pilot, as a piece of TV, as a series opener. I love it. What about you?
I love it too.
Do you love End of the World?
It unnerves me.
Does it?
It does.
The episode? Or the concept?
The concept of it.
So Rose goes to the far future, because it doesn't just travel, through space, it also travels in time. It's the year 5 billion. The death of planet Earth. Long since evacuated, but has been kept preserved by the National Trust, which is such a great throwaway line.
Bless.
The good and the great, aka the rich and the exhibitionists of the universe, have come to Satellite 5. Is it Satellite 5? Or is it something station? Yeah, Satellite. It's Satellite 5 at this point, I think. No, someone correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Wait a minute. No, it's not Satellite 5, that's later on. Basically, they've come to this bloody ship to watch the Earth burn as the sun finally expands and consumes the Earth, as was predicted. And the Doctor has a great point of saying that, like, you lot always worry about, how things are going to end. You never stop to think about whether or not you carry on. And we know from the show's history at this point, continuity-wise, that Earth was evacuated a few times.
Yeah.
And then sometimes returned to, sometimes the population went to other places, planets, colonised elsewhere, started ships, travelled across the universe. There are many fates for the human race.
Arcs.
So eventually, a couple of them. So eventually, the planet is empty. And it's Death Day. It's about to burn up. So we meet people who are here either because they're rich and want to show off, or because they are representing parts of Earth's history and are there to kind of pay respect and show, the Forest of Cheam. Jabe is like a noble woman from the Forest of Cheam. Of course, they originally descended. They descended from Earth because, of course, originally trees and plant life on Earth became their species eventually. this is great because suddenly the show goes, we've got you in, great, unleash the aliens.
Yep.
And it's just
all at once.
Oh my god, the guys who've got like wicker baskets for faces. You know which ones I mean, don't you? The lizardy sort of like ones that look like the frog lady from Mandalorian.
Oh
yeah. You've got the Mox of Balhoun, which is just. I mean, I remember that being the breakout alien of Series 1. That was the one that was on all the merch and stuff because it's just so distinct looking. Solicitations. The adherents of the repeated meme, a gift of peace and all good faith. Like the steward and his staff, like you have sort of shorter ones, like played by child and small adult actors, and you've got the steward himself, which is these dark blue workers on the station. Like he's the first one you meet. It's a great introduction. It's like, oh, they look like us, but they're blue. Okay.
Yeah.
And then open the doors. Here comes a giant face in a tank. Like, we're just going to keep them going.
Oh, face of Bo.
The face of Bo.
Do you know what? I did forget that you meet the face of Bo so soon.
The face of Bo appears thrice. We meet and you will see them mentioned again later this series. They don't make an appearance, but you see them again this series on a news broadcast. So that they're around. The face of Bo is very much seeded in. I think the face of Bo's continued use came from two things. One, it's such a compelling visual and an idea.
Yeah.
And two, it's probably very expensive to make. And they're like,
yeah.
We're going to reuse the face of Bo a few times.
Absolutely.
We've seen it as well. We've seen it in the flesh.
And it is humongous, ginormous.
It is. It's a beautiful prop. It's
is.
So gorgeous. As is the non-existent prop, CGI character who I think at the time was a little ropey, but the idea of it is so horrific and the performance by Zoe Wanamaker is so good that you don't care.
Yeah.
The Lady Cassandra O'Brien. Delta 17. The last human, albeit after 1 billion plastic surgeries. She's a brain in a jar with key fluids being brought up to a skin sheet stretched in a frame with a face in the middle.
Ew! You described it so gross.
Oh, but just the veins, like you can see the veins in it. She is a genius creation. She's so vile, and that's her personality. Never mind what she looks like. What she looks like is obviously like the hell. But
I'm remembering like what's gonna come.
Yeah. Well, long and short, at the end of the world is people are gathering, but then people start getting bumped off and murdered, and there's some sabotage on the station. These little robot spiders that have been handed out by the adherents of the repeated meme start to take things apart, get rid of security systems, sun's ray filtrations, hacking into stuff. And you realise it's all sabotage because someone's trying to kill everybody off. For what reason? Well, it's revealed at the end, spoiler alert, for a 15-plus-year-old episode. 15-year-plus-year-old... No, wait, hang on. Yeah, that's right, 15-plus-year-old episode. That Cassandra's behind it. She's bought...
She essentially bought stock in
She's bought stocks in all their rival companies. So when they all die, she's going to be, like, quintuply richer than she is before. Like, she's going to make all the freaking money. So it's effectively, it's a whodunit. It's a whodunit in space that looks like a Saturday morning cartoon show. And I'm here for it. The premise is great. The reveal is nice. Like, you know it's the adherents of the repeated meme because you see them handing out these spheres to everyone, and then we know that's the spiders. Mm-hmm. The spiders that attack the poor plumber. And she's great. She's one in a long line of characters who, like, Rose just gets a moment with someone, and you're like, oh, wow. People, personalities. They're going to die, aren't they? But, like, you know it's them, and then, of course, you know, that's what a meme is. It's just an idea, and you realise, oh, no, Cassandra's behind it. It's great. Dead simple murder mystery.
But the implications of, you know, the danger of, you know, the shield coming down and essentially everybody being burnt to a crisp. The steward
gets roasted.
Steward gets, like, burnt alive. That is such a grim...
As does a few of the aliens, including the Mox. By the end of it, the Mox of Balhoun's one of them that fries to death.
See, that's something I didn't spot on the
initial viewing.
Yeah, the first couple of times we watched it. I didn't realise that some of them died.
Oh yeah, there's a body count in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy V's first appearance in the show as an actor. He plays many parts in this and Sarah Jane over the years. Next time we'll see him in this series is as the alien found in the ship in the Thames in the next story.
Does he play?
Which was the very first shot Eccleston ever filmed. Apparently, is him chasing after a pig in a spacesuit. Of course.
Bana Capalata.
He's Bana Capalata. Yeah. He's the Grask. He's I believe he performed the Scovox Blitzer in series 8. He's in it a lot. He pops up in Sarah Jane as different creatures as well. Does a lot of creature work for the show. And there'll be some I've missed as well. Things I love about this episode are the moments. The little stuff. Rose talking to Cassandra about like what being human actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Her freaking out over just the shock of it all.
Yeah.
Like the culture shock of this. And then that sudden realisation of, I have no idea who he is and I just said yes and I went travelling with him. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
How it takes the whole episode for him to actually kind of open up to her and talk about something personal. And it's the first hint we have that since we last saw the Doctor, and that's another thing that is, the TV movie gave us a bit of it, but this really goes in on it, is we don't know what's happened since we last saw the Doctor. We really don't know. So it's not like, hey, let's get back with him and off we go in time. It's like, yeah, but why is he acting like this? What's different? And it takes the whole episode for him to open up to her. It takes everything horrible that goes on for him to like be clear.
Yeah.
Partially brought out of him by Jabe, who out of curiosity scans who he is, and the computer is like giving her an answer. She's like, "No, that's impossible. That can't be right." And she never says it, although she calls him Time Lord before the end. But she obviously knows he's from Gallifrey.
Yeah. And
she says, "I just want to say I'm so sorry." And just when he's at that toolbox and you can just see him, he's concentrating, but he's listening and he's welling up, like really quietly. You're like, what's happened? I remember the first time I watched this, I was like, right, what's gone on? What the hell has happened?
Yeah.
What is this? And by the end of the episode, we get, there was a war and we lost. And we find out by the very end of this episode, he's a Time Lord. He's the last of the Time Lords. And you're like, what? What the hell's happened? What's gone on? Where is his planet? Where are his people? Why is he the last one? He travels on his own because there's no one else left. And you're like, oh my god. And then they get chips.
Oh wait! So that would mean that like Leela's dead and stuff.
Presumably whoever was on Gallifrey, people in the comments are like, but in Big Finish, shush! Presumably everyone who's on Gallifrey is gone.
Oh my god! It's not like...
Because again, we're not thinking about context of the later series either. This is what's been revealed to us.
Yeah.
This is what we've been told. Gallifrey is gone, lost in a war.
Yeah. And
the Doctor is the last Time Lord left alive. And at the end they go and get chips, which is lovely. I think this is a great second episode. It's like, hey, we eased you in last week. Come to space. Jabe is my favourite. Like, she's the highlight of the episode for me. I think her performance is fantastic. Her design is fantastic.
Yeah, it really is.
Zoe Wanamaker as Cassandra is amazing. No wonder they brought her back. Even after she dies. Because she explodes.
Yeah, she doesn't just
die. We
get
some gore.
She explodes.
Yeah. And also, Tainted Love and Toxic being used. Like, one of the rare instances of a pop song being used within
an old
the episode.
relic. Was a jukebox.
Yeah, an iPod is a big jukebox. And the sad thing is, even that joke will be sort of lost now on younger viewers who discover this series now. They'll be like, what's an iPod?
Oh my god, there's people out... Oh my god, no, don't, let's not even go there. That's horrible.
I think it's a great second episode. But now we get to my favourite of the first three, The Unquiet Dead.
This is one of my favourites, full stop.
What happens in The Unquiet Dead? Not Chris.
The Doctor has said to Rose, so we've been to the future. Let's go to the past.
And they aim for, I think it's Naples or someone like that is where they aim for. Yeah.
And they end up in Cardiff.
Which is played off a couple of times as like which is quite funny because obviously it was very heavily publicised when this went out that the show was being made by BBC Wales, mostly shot in Cardiff.
Yeah.
And I remember that it was sort of the first big genre thing to be shot there since BBC Wales ramped up production. So they made a big thing out of like, yes, it's the first BBC Wales production, it's shooting in Cardiff, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to do this, that, and the other, blah, blah. And the whole country at the time, I even remember my dad reading about it in the paper and be like, a bit weird, isn't it? But it's like, it's only weird because it wasn't really... It's only really weird because it wasn't really the done thing yet. Yeah, I mean, now obviously so many things have come out of BBC Wales, dramas, genre fiction, etc., etc. Yeah. So the fact that the show is sort of poking fun at it a bit is interesting. I wonder if that won't make any sense to people coming to it late or people watching it overseas. I wonder if they'll just think, why? What's wrong with Cardiff?
What's Cardiff?
What's a Cardiff?
I thought it was only London. No.
But what's happening? What's happening in Mr. Sneed's funeral service? What's been going on for the last few weeks?
The dead have been walking.
Oh! I love the way that's established with just we've got another one! At the beginning, you're like, wait, another one?
Yeah.
What? The recently deceased have been coming back to life briefly.
And one of them ends up in a reading of A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Being read by Charles Dickens.
Who's on tour during the late period of his life where he was very detached to his family. And played by Simon Callow.
Yay! Love Simon Callow. He is a British national treasure.
God damn it, he's an international treasure. The sad thing is, when was the first time you remember watching him in something? Because for me...
It was Phantom of the Opera.
Really?
Yeah, mine was Phantom of the Opera.
For me, it's Ace Ventura When Nature Calls.
I didn't really... Oh, yeah.
Because he's the villain in Ace Ventura When Nature Calls. God, he's the one who gets the... on his nips, the shadow puppet bit. Starring another Doctor Who historical figure actor for a future episode as well, Ian McNeice. Churchill is in that as well. He's the guy who retrieves Ace from the monastery and brings him to the thingy in the first place. So you got Churchill and...
Oh, God, yeah!
You got Churchill and Dickens in the same film, and then skipping ahead to Series 6, in the wrong one. In The Wedding of River Song, the Series 6 finale, they're both in it. And it's like, that's so weird. Because, this is Simon Callow's first of 2 appearances as Charles Dickens in this show. But this is the only one where it's like an episode dedicated to him, not a throwaway cameo. It's also one of 2 characters he plays in Doctor Who Expanded Universe, because he returns to play one of the Blathereen in the Sarah Jane Series 3 finale. He's very good. You don't see him, he's all voiceover.
Yeah.
It's him and Miriam Margolyes. They voice over these Blathereen, they're very good. But Dickens is doing a reading, and the dead woman arrives there.
He's talking about when Scrooge sees Marley's face in the door knocker.
Yeah.
And he's saying, you say it looks just like that, and it's the dead woman.
Yeah.
Who is.
We've got zombies. We've got Victorian zombies.
Can you point to her?
Yeah, she's there. There she is.
This one. And he's just like, oh, what an amazing illusion. And the doctor's following.
Well, that's the thing. They've heard the screams.
And all that. And Rose notices that the mortician and his maid.
Sneed and his sort of house servant Gwyneth taking
the old lady. And she's like, no, you killed her, oh no. And then they end up kidnapping her because she's seen too much.
Yeah.
And then they get back to the house.
Because it's bad for business. That's Sneed's main panic. It's bad for business. Like, if people catch the bodies wandering around, then they're not going to use them because they'll be like, "There's something funny about your house," and we learn.
But they might bring them back.
No, but they learned the building where they set up had a reputation for being haunted, and he's been there for a few years, but they've never heard anything until the last few months. And sounds in the walls, but that's what's great about this because this is Mark Gatiss' first script for the show. And we know from League of Gentlemen, Crooked House, like the stuff he's worked on.
Crooked House, that's amazing.
We know that he loves his ghost stuff. I mean, all the League love their horror. and Mark is big on ghost stuff, and you could. This is on paper. This is a ghost story.
Yeah.
But it ain't.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what's brilliant. Is it's like, oh right, oh it's Doctor Who and Ghosts in Victorian London.
He's managed to put two things that he's obviously really passionate about together, and I think that's why it's so good, because you can see how.
That's what's so good about this first couple of years of the revival as well, is that everyone's telling the story that they're like, oh, if I did one, I'd love to tell one like this.
Yeah, and they are given the opportunity to do that. And you can see all the love and passion in the show because of these people, which is amazing.
And it doesn't say oh ghosts, load of bollocks. It says, oh no, what we call ghosts is this stuff happens. Which is interesting, because like previous doctors have been like, ghosts, no, load of shit, what are you talking about? Whereas this doctor's like, no, it just happens. Like there are these pockets, these little rifts in time and space where one part of the universe connects to another. They're very small, and sometimes things bleed through. And that's what ghosts are. That's what people call ghosts.
Yeah.
Because every now and again people will see something that doesn't quite feel right, and it's because they're actually just seeing something else popping through briefly.
And then it's gone. Yeah.
And then it's gone. And it's like, oh, and it's just a throwaway line from the Doctor. And then you move on and you go, all right. Now the rift comes into play later
Somebody
this series.
tell that to Zach Bagans.
Yeah. God. The rift comes into play later on in this series. Like they use it later on in the series as part of another story in Cardiff. And it leads to an entire bloody spin-off show about things coming through the rift in Cardiff. So like it's such a throwaway setup in this one episode that leads to loads more stories later. But it works so well self-contained in this. Mm-hmm. Gwyneth has the sight. We sort of learn that she's grown up around this area. And essentially, it's like she's got... It's the whole thing of, like, she can hear the dead, maybe she can talk to angels, and it's the medium thing. I love a happy medium. Bloody hell, that line.
Oh, God.
Like, she clearly sort of has what we sort of perceive as, like, she's the little lady from Poltergeist,
His health is clean.
But the explanation here is, no, she just grew up around the rift, so close to the rift, that she's kind of got a connection with it. She can hear it.
Yeah.
And as a result, she's a conduit. She is somebody who can connect the two worlds, given the chance. We learn that the things piloting the bodies temporarily live in a gaseous environment, like they're sort of a gaseous life form.
They live in the gas lamps.
Yeah, and they're called the Gelth. And they've lost their planet. Again, implications that they lost their planet in a conflict. And they need somewhere new to stay, to live. And the bodies, the cadavers, can give them an extended life. Like, there's so little of them. They're on the verge of extinction. They're surviving in this gaseous form, but they're going to die out, and they need a new home.
And there's not that many of them, which is what convinces the Doctor to say, you can use the corpses as vessels.
Which is great, because of course then Rose is like, no, they can't. It's the respect thing of no, these were people. That's insulting. And he's like, they're going to die. What's more important? And it's one of the occasions in this first couple of episodes they really hammer home. Yeah, he's not human.
Yeah. You
see both of their points, but I think most people would be as horrified as Rose. That's weird. Like, if you turned round, looked down the street, and saw, it's a Gelth person. It's a Gelth person, but they're wearing your granddad.
Exactly.
That'd be horrifying. So, it's they bring up some great ideas in this. The way that Gwyneth can kind of see into people's minds a bit, and she eventually sees where Rose comes from.
Yeah.
And she's so horrified. She's terrified because, of course, it's not even that long. It's 120 years ago from the point of the broadcast of this, 120, 130 years ago. They never would have imagined a million years that there'd be people in vehicles that fly around the world. What a terrifying leap to sort of to process in your head. It's so... Oh my god, Eve Miles plays it so bloody well. No wonder they wanted to work with her again, because she's great in this. Sneed is bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
The stage manager in his brief little role is really charming and is nice, and like just the guy grieving over his grandmother, and like everyone plays their part so well in this.
Yeah, they really do.
But the highlight's Callow. He's, oh my god, Dickens, who feels like he's coming to the end of his life. He can feel like his years closing in. He's clearly hiding an illness. Because at the top he's really thinking the stage manager's like, is everything alright? He's like, yeah, no, fine. And he's suddenly confronted with the notion that you've spent your life trying to right social injustice, right the wrongs of social injustice, and fight for the working man. You've used your literature and your article and journalism writing to try to highlight horrible disparities that have put people at a disadvantage, and whilst also making entertainment as well. But it's been about like Dickens' work. If you've never gone into Charles Dickens' oeuvre, look into it. It ain't just sort of like, oh, it's the Ghost of Christmassy one. No, it's please sir, can I have some more? Like, all of it is done for a reason. Every single one of his stories, there is a reason for him doing it.
Yeah.
His short stories taper a little more into fun. Like, he's just sort of, I'm going to write this, I'm going to write that. But every single one of them has a point about wealth disparity and poverty.
Yeah, there's a moral behind every story.
Yeah. So he's suddenly struck with the idea that, yeah, you thought you were a spokesperson for everyone and that you were doing the right thing. Maybe the world as you know it is completely wrong. And there's way more to it.
Yeah.
You understand his late life crisis as this is happening. He's like, denial makes sense. But he comes around and does the right thing. Like, he's the one who cracks the code when Gwyneth, well, not really Gwyneth anymore, lets the Gelth through, and we learn that they are actually a legion of bloody creatures waiting.
And they're going to kill everybody.
They're going to kill everyone and take their bodies. But Charles uses the gas to trap them in the building. And then, effectively, the soul or the ghost of Gwyneth lights the match and kills the Gelth and saves everyone. Which is great, because by the end, the doctor said, I think she died the moment she stepped into that arch, and Rose is like, but she saved us, she spoke to us. And Charles brings up Shakespeare and is like, there are more things in heaven and earth than dreamt of in your philosophy, and you're like, okay. So even though they're ghosts, but they're actually aliens. Oh, they're zombies, but they're actually suits for the aliens.
Suits.
There are voices, and she can hear voices. She's been living near this rift in space. All these explanations, and yet at the very end, still that little tease of, yeah, but how did she do that? And do you know what I mean? There's still a little bit of a ghosty thing at the end, which is nice. This is the first Christmas story since the Feast of Stephen with Billy and the Daleks' master plan. And if any Merry Christmas to all of you at home.
No, Billy!
Don't do it, Billy! But this is a non-Christmas special Christmas episode. And it works really well.
Yeah.
I love the Unquiet Dead. I think it's bloody brilliant.
It is one of my favourites. It really is.
The conversation, the first time the Doctor and Charles Dickens properly talking in the carriage is so well done.
There's that line. Sorry, you on it.
I've read them all. Great Expectations. What's the Oliver Twist? What's the one with the ghost? Christmas Carol? No, short story. One with the trains. Signalman. Terrifying. Best short story ever written. You're a genius. And they're like, do you want me to get rid of him, sir? No. I think he can stay. She's like, yes.
It's just the throwaway lines. I love a happy medium. All that stuff.
The one you got for the first time when they open the door and Charles Dickens is proper having a go at Gwyneth. He's like, just we're closed. He's like, don't be silly. You're a funeral home. The dead don't die on schedule. No, I demand to be let in.
Exactly.
And you hear the voices, and then there's Rose's scream, and Charles says, "What the Shakespeare?"
I never got that. I never got it until now.
Literally, you stopped. You went, "Oh!" And you started laughing. You're like, I've never twigged what he said. It's brilliant. Just, there's so much to love. The crunch of the snow. Oh, Rose getting dressed up to basically blend in, and then stepping out into the snow, and the crunch under a shoe, and just they really set up the idea of it. And she runs and
races to the door because he got to do it last time.
Yeah.
But she wanted to do it. This is so cute.
It'll cause a riot, Barbara. And again, I love the idea that he's like, your clothes will stand out like crazy, but then all he does is change his jumper.
Yeah. But
because by this point he's used to just stepping out however the hell he looks and
but
dealing
also,
with things.
if you think about it, you know, women in those days were viewed as, you know, temptation and promiscuous beings if you showed any type of flesh. Apart from
to be fair, she's got a shoulder and some cleavage out in this one.
Apart from the tats, you know, you can get your tatters out like barely, just like above the nip line, and they
My nails above the nip line.
But oh my God forbid you like show your neck or your ankles, or your elbows or something. I don't know, but bizarre. But yeah, but I like.
Billy looks gorgeous in this episode. She looks absolutely
gorgeous.
gorgeous.
I love the implications starting that they kind of like each other.
Yeah, it's not a story of lovers, but it is a romance.
Yeah,
and
it definitely feels different from other companions.
He's finding his excitement again.
Yeah,
and is able to focus on things other than being the last of his kind again, and she's finally found that excitement that she was looking for, and as that they're bonding, and it's adorable. It feels organic, but it doesn't feel intrusive.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Really sweet. Also, unless I missed one in the last 2 episodes, let me know in the comments. First mention of Bad Wolf.
Yeah.
The big bad wolf. Which becomes, of course, a trend in this era of the show. One thing we've not talked about before we wrap up this video is, and again, it can't be first impressions because we're now in that era where we're revisiting an era we both grew up with and watched. The Doctor. Thoughts on the Doctor at this point? How did you feel by this point when you first visited it, and is it rekindling watching it this time?
I think I like him more because I know what he's been like before, and knowing what we know now about the war and everything that happened, how he's changed.
I mean, you have to kind of take away what you know of the future series to
to an extent, but knowing, you know, what he was like, he was all happy, jovial. I mean, his costume.
Come on, guys, we've got work to do.
His costumes would reflect, you know, his kind of goofiness, really, but he's far more serious now. And
I mean, this is the most dressed down looking Doctor we've ever had.
Very dark and
just jeans, boots, jacket.
I mean, the fact that he just let Cassandra die is very, very telling.
Yeah, look, he didn't provide her a way out. There's a through line which becomes clearer by the end of this series of where his morality is. Ultimately, and this is something to watch for if you like doing this along with us and you're sort of watching the show along with us. We talk about this in 9 is 10. Cavan Scott, brilliant writer, he brings it up in our Dr. Dancer's Empty Child 2-parter commentaries. This Doctor never pulls the trigger. Ever. He doesn't save the day. Ever. He gives the means to other people to do it.
Oh.
Or allows the events to play out naturally.
Right.
He's the most... When it comes to the final blow, or the thing that could save the day, he's the most non-interfering Doctor. And it's because of what we learn later in Dalek and beyond. He doesn't want the blood on his hands.
I can get that.
So he's passive.
Yeah.
Or changes things from a distance, even in what we see in Clive's shed. Like, a family friend convinces them not to go on the Titanic journey a few weeks before. Like, why would you do that? Well, he obviously liked these people and was like, I can't. And he's just sort of nudged it ever so slightly.
Yeah.
He witnesses the assassination of Kennedy. He doesn't interfere or play with it. He's just there. Do you know what I mean? Just all these little things. And again in the series, he doesn't kill Cassandra. He brings her back to serve justice. And then she dies.
Yeah.
He was going to negotiate with the Nestine. It was going horribly. He was going to end up dying. Rose takes the step that saves the day.
Yeah.
In The Unquiet Dead, Gwyneth saves the day.
Yeah, that's very true.
And as we go on, keep watching that. Now, it's not that the Doctor's not a hero. But he's dealing with a trauma where the last time he made a decision to save the day, as we learn in the next few episodes, as we'll learn in the next video, 2 whole races were wiped from existence. He does not want blood on his hands anymore.
Dang.
So, of course, what does he do? He goes back out there, but he tries not to draw attention to himself. He dresses down. He acts like he's never acted before. He seems a lot more like the common man. He blends in with people way more than he ever has done before. Despite not being human, you could stick him in a crowd and he wouldn't stand out at all. Mm-hmm. Highlighted brilliantly by the end of the world, where him and Rose are just in the middle of that high street, and if they weren't being focused on by the camera, they'd just be another pair of people in that high street.
You smell chips?
Yeah.
I smell chips.
I want chips. Me too. Well, what are your thoughts on the first 3 episodes of Series 1, as we're going to call it, because that's what it's bloody called, of Doctor Who? What's your favourite out of the 3 episodes? Are you a Ninth Doctor groupie like me? Let us know down below. Is there any questions you'd like to ask him?
How do you think it compares to classic Doctor Who?
Oh, that's a great question.
Do you like the stories? Do you like the music and all that? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, how does it contrast for you as a viewer?
Yeah.
And is it off-putting or is it enjoyable? We'll see you next time, where we're going to talk about aliens in London, a possible Third World War, and what is that thing in Van Statten's vault beneath Utah? Who knows? It's a Dalek. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.